All right, the crucifixion of Christ. Thank you for clicking on this video, spending some time. The purpose of this post is to shed light on a mystery. What is the crucifixion of Christ? Your modern interpretation is blasphemous, and we're going to expose this. We're going to expose this. This is how you answer their silly questions. You killed your God. You killed your God. We're going to expose this. The crucifixion is an absolute mockery. 100% an absolute mockery. Okay? Here we go. Let's begin right here. We won't spend much time on this. We'll get right into the word here in a minute. The Joker, the fool archetype. Is he laughing at you? I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. The great fool, or the great father of all, being depicted as a jester or a clown-like figure, is often a metaphor for the supreme being utilized in Hermetic texts such as the Tarot. God, from the Hermetic perspective as well as a Jewish perspective, is similar to an evil clown as well as the Gnostic perspective. They all call him the demiurge, in that he's apathetic at best, even cruel and sinister, and quite often because he is the origin of what we perceive as evil. We perceive as evil. You see what's wrong here? He, the Lord, does all these things. The power of the Joker archetypal figure stems from his solidified connection to his gravitational center, the center, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I don't want to spend much time on here, but it gets even worse. They say don't craft in his ways, in his laws, any of them things, and do as thou wilt. That's basically what they're saying. And we're going to expose this whole mockery. This whole mockery. All right? So you Christians out there that are saying Christ was crucified, you need to know why. And without saying, you know, empty phrases and, you know what I'm saying? So the crucifixion is a mockery. Matthew 20:19. They shall deliver him unto the Gentiles to mock and to scourge and to crucify him. And the third day he shall rise again. Mark 15:13. And they cried out again, crucify him. Luke 23:21. But they cried, saying, crucify him, crucify him. Luke 24:20. And how the chiefs and the priests and the rulers delivered him to be condemned to death and have crucified him. Luke 23:35. And the people stood beholding, and the rulers also with them, deriding him, saying, he saved others, let him save himself. If he be Christ, the chosen of God. Matthew 23:5. They enlarged the borders of their garments. Now, this is clearly a mockery, what's going on. We're going to get into this. There's other aspects that we have to understand, such as the borders of their garment, which is in reference to the woman. I would love to give you just the ending right now so that everything would make sense. But if you just roll tight with me, you will see why all of these things are relevant. So the enlarging the borders of their garments. How is this done? This is the crucifixion and the mockery. So let's reference Matthew 27:22 through 23, as well as 26. Barabbas, which is Strong's Greek 9:12. Barabbas, son of the father or master, from Strong's Hebrew 5, meaning Bagatha, meaning God-given. And that is from Hebrews 12:47, son. And that is from Hebrews 11:21, son, member of a group, youth, young men, young of animals, sons, as characterizations, namely sons of injustice. For unrighteous men, people of a nation, those are the waters, of lifeless things, Remphan, namely sparks, stars, arrows, figuratively, which would be a whole nother video, a member of a guild, order, class, this is your parents' pie tray, as a pagan, or what would be called the Plaganist, which is your citizen. That's all a pagan is. Just like in Legis. And in Legis, which is interesting, you know, you got to cast out the swine before you get the pearls. And he was cutting himself with the stones, which is the other rock, the Tyre. Different type of rock. Let us continue here. But you see what's happening here. The border of their garments are jurisdictions of Cain's kids, basically. Watch my Cain's wife video. I explain it a lot better there. Like I said, I don't want to branch out too much because there's so much branches of relevance here to understand this tree of crucifixion, okay? And this is one of them, okay? This is how they enlarge the borders of their garments. And I'm going to get into what this garment is as well. So all of these rivers are grafted in. The birds rest their nests in their branches, right? The borders of their garment. And that Hebrews Strong's is from Hebrew 11:29. To build, rebuild, establish, cause to continue, to build, rebuild, to build a house, namely establish a family. In this case, the surrogate fatherless family under the archetype Nimrod. In the ways of Cain, in the era of Balaam, under the Nicolaitan doctrine, etc., etc., same shit, different laxative. To be built, to be rebuilt, established, of restored exiles, figuratively established, made permanent. To be built up, of childless wife, becoming the mother of a family through the children of a concubine. 100% Cain's kids, the whore that sits upon the waters. Barabbas is a version of Tammuz. He's a destroyed temple. That's all Tammuz is. The child of Nimrod is the destroyed temple. Watch my Satan video, how you made a contract to the dragon and you're no longer the head. You're no longer the head. Watch my Tammuz video as well. It's a lost estate, a burnt sacrifice, a ward of the state, a grasshopper in the locust. It's a member of the giant in the earth, a drop in the flood. That is exactly what a Barabbas is. And let us build a tower, Genesis 11:4, and Babylon has fallen, Revelation 18:2. Another thing I'm against the Christians, that the Antichrist will rise and will all be served a purpose, the one world order. It will never be built. And I'm going to tell you what will be. This is part of this whole crucifixion. Okay, so we had a lot of references up in here. A lot of references. Like I said, this tree is going to branch out before we could understand what happened here on crucifixion. So the woman that reached for the tzitzi in Matthew 9:20 and Luke 8:44, the woman from Samaria, which is interesting. It means house of the fallen figs, which is the church of the poor. And John 4:42, and said unto the woman, now we believe that this indeed the Christ, the Savior of the world. These are examples of legion. You're in legis coming out of the world. Abraham exiting Ur, Lot exiting Ur. And the whore that sits on the waters, unfortunately, is the salt of Sodom and Egypt. Lot's wife, Cain's wife, you know? So this women concept is going to be very important to understand here, as well as the borders of their garment through their participating members, their citizens, their marked ones. Okay, they're four corners of the world, and their jurisdiction encompasses that world. Watch my Hova video, and you'll understand why they mock his crucifixion and why they so badly wanted him to be a Tammuz, and why they called him a thief and all these other things. And watch my Elements of the World video. Where we leave off? The woman is Matthew 27:52, 53. And the graves were open, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose, and came out of the graves after his crucifixion, and went into the holy city, and appeared unto many. This is why I didn't want to read the rest of that blasphemous Joker thing, because they say not to do this. Let people do as they want. Do as thou please. Aim for the bushes. Aim for the bushes is what I got to say to that. So that's the importance of this woman, okay? And I got a wonderful video coming up about the biblical virgin, the biblical woman. I'm going to expand much more on this concept. Right now, it's just a branch on this crucifixion tree. So let's get back into the mockery, now that you understood just a little bit of their garments and why they consider him a thief. And, you know, apparently he wasn't paying his taxes and he wasn't participating in income and all these other crazy things. Mockery, Matthew 27:40-42. And saying thou that destroyest the temple and buildest in 3 days, save thyself. If thee be the Son of God, come down from the cross. That's going to be very important in a minute. This is going to be very important in a minute. Likewise, also the chief priests mocking him, with the scribes and the elders said, he saved others, himself he cannot save. There's a reason why this is. I'm telling you, this is going to be so oh my God, hang with me. This is amazing. I'm so excited. If he be the king of Israel, let him now come down from the cross, and we will begin to believe in, because he'll be a Tammuz. He'll be a participating member if he did that. Watch this. It's so amazing. Mark 15:30, save thyself and come down from the cross. Satan baited him like this on the mountain too. Likewise, also the chief priests mocking said among themselves with the scribes, he said, others himself he cannot save. Let Christ, the King of Israel, descend now from the cross, that we may see and believe. And they that were crucified with him reviled him. They did crucify him. This whole mockery, there's two aspects of this, and we're going to reveal this. So he's surrounded by this jurisdiction, the floods, okay, these people, these waters, and just as Jonah was swallowed by the seas, the waters, Christ was too. Matthew 12:38-42. Jonah swallowed by his own belly at his own table. The Rahab the Leviathan, he was trying to do the same thing, extend the border of his own garment. God's will be done. It won't be sent to no effect. And the Son of God made manifest. He did go up into, what was that city? Nineveh? Anyway, I apologize on that. But yeah, he did the same thing. And Jonah here too. Out of the belly he cried, out of the belly of hell cried I, for thou hast cast me into the deep. You see how he's a woman right here. This is so vital for comprehension. You guys must understand. Has cast me into the deep, in the midst of the seas, and the floods encompassed me about. Philippians 3:19, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, whose glory is in their shame, who mind earthly things. Belly means hollow in the heart. 2 Peter 1:19, the innermost part of a man, the soul, heart as the seat of thought, feeling, and choice. Matthew 12:40, for as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, the belly of the beast, so shall the Son of Man be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. This is amazing right here. Matthew 27:31. Now we're going to get into the garment, extending the borders of their garments. After they that had mocked him, they took the robe off of him and put his own raiment on him and led him away to crucify him. Matthew 27:35, and they crucified him and parted his garments. This is important too. Casting lots, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet. They parted my garments among them, and upon my vesture did they cast lots. We're going to get into this. Please, hey, you gotta be, get your monkey on and hang on to these branches, because it will reveal the tree. Just trust me. I'm so sorry for doing this, but these are vital for understanding. Mark 15:20-24, and when they had mocked him, they took off the purple from him and put his own clothes on him and led him out to crucify him. And when they had crucified him, they parted his garments, casting lots upon him what every man should take. John 19:23, garment, when the soldiers, when they had crucified Jesus, took his garments and made 4 parts, to every soldier a part, and also his coat. Now the coat was without seam, woven from the top throughout. Is Christ divided? Divided waters, his divided garments were parted, just as the waters were parted. Okay? I got plenty of other references on my water biblical comprehension. Okay? There's no puddles going on here. So his garments were parted just as the waters were parted. Okay? 1 Corinthians, the garment, Revelation 19:12, 13-16. He had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And he had on his vesture and his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Do you see what the scribes and Pharisees were doing? Extending the borders of their own garment through their own fatherless bastardization as the supposed surrogate father. And this archetype is the same shit, different laxative. We're going to get into that too. It's not just the false prophets, it's the Antichrist themselves. Herod's an example of this, the Pharaoh, Caesar, and you'll see, even though all these things have been set up for your benefit, but that's choose your own level of participation. So, fashioned, a garment in such a style to give shape or form to make, construct, or create. Fashioned is Strong's Greek 4976. The habitus, a person's general constitution, the way a person of a particular background perceives and reacts to the world, as compromising everything in a person which strikes the senses, the figure, bearing, discourse, actions, and manner of walk, etc. 1 Corinthians 7:31, and they that use this world as not abusing it, for the fashion of this world passeth away. Philippians 2:8, and being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. So the divisions of the garment, John 19:18, where they crucified him and two others with him on either side, one and Jesus in the midst. Jesus in the midst. This is another fun video I could do. Matthew 27:38, two thieves left and right, when there were where there were two thieves crucified with him, one on the right hand and another on the left. Mark 15:27, and with him they crucified two thieves, the one on his right hand and the other on his left. Luke 23:33, and when they were coming to the place which is called Calvary, where they crucified him, there they crucified him, and the malefactors, one on the right hand and the other on the left hand. John 19:34, but one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side. This is the rib, the temple walls, the woman. Okay, we're going to get into this in a minute. And forthwith came there out blood and water, the division of the garments. Okay, and the water itself, Matthew 25:33, and he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left. In Daniel 12:5-7, then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood other two, the one on the side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river. And one said to the man, clothed in fine linen, which was upon the waters of the river, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in fine linen, which was upon the waters of the river, which he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be 4 times, time and a half, and when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. There was no seams in these parted garment. Okay, it was seamless, and you're gonna see why in a minute. Jesus walks upon the waters. I've referenced this many times in my studies. Let us reveal the mystery of this rib. The woman, okay? The rib is Strong's Hebrew 6763. Side, beam, rib of a man, but only in Genesis 2:21 and 22. All other verses using this term means side of a chamber or cells of temple structure, plank board of cedar or fir, leaves of a door, side of an ark, described in these verses. Exodus 25:12-14, 26, described in all of these verses. Okay? So you only have one verse describing the rib of a man, and that's because we're going to get into that too, the enmity. We're going to get into this. Like I said, you're going to need a good grip on these branches to understand these trees in my presentations. You're going to need a good grip. From Strong's Hebrew 6760. Micah 4:6-7. In that day, say the Lord, I will assemble her that halteth. And we're going to get into this. Oh my goodness. And I will gather her that is driven out, and her that I have afflicted, and I will make her that halted a remnant, and her that was cast far off strong nation, and the Lord shall reign over them in Mount Zion from henceforth, even forever. We're going to get into this. Zephaniah 3:19, behold, at that time I will undo all that affect thee, and I will save her that halteth, and gather her that was driven out, and I will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. Genesis 32:31. And as he passed over Peniel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. Genesis 2:23, and Adam said, this is now the bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of a man. John 20:17, Jesus said unto her, touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren and say unto them, I ascend unto my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God. John 21:4. But when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. Luke 24:39. Behold, my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see, for a spirit hath not flesh and bones, as ye see me have. It's interesting, right? Because they didn't recognize him, but thousands rose with him and went into the giant to preach the gospel, and to the daughters that were fair to take them wives and post ribs. We're going to get into this. We're going to get into this. I pray you get revelation through this. And I just lost myself. Here we go. John 19:26. When the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus and stood in the midst, and said unto them, peace be unto you. And after 8 days again, his disciples were within, and Thomas, the blind twin, with them, who needed to see the print in his hand, and shove his right hand, his works, into the woman. Okay, you see where this is going, into the temple walls. And then came Jesus, the doors being shut, and he stood in the midst and said, peace be with you. How did Jesus get in there? You got to remember, this is his resurrection. No one, thousands rose with him. Okay? Let's get into what this crucifixion is. God clothed them in Genesis 3:21. This is back into the garment. Unto Adam also and unto his wife did Lord God make coats of skin and clothe them. Remember, it was the woman that Jesus revealed himself to at the empty tomb. What did I just say about Legion? The woman from Samaria. Abraham himself being a woman. Okay? These concepts are all relevant, and they're all biblically backed. So let us proceed. John 19:25. Now there stood by the cross of Jesus his mother, and his mother's sister Elizabeth, Luke 1:13, Mary, the wife of Cleophas, and Mary Magdalene. These are all Marys here. John 20:11-14. But Mary stood without at the sepulchre weeping, and as she wept, weeping for Tammuz, the destroyed temples, she stooped down and looked into the sepulchre, and when she had thus said, she turned herself back and saw Jesus standing there, and knew not that it was Jesus. Go into the daughters that are fair. Mary and David are synonymous. They are both the beloved ones that bring forth the star, which that's a whole different video. So let's get into why this woman concept is so complicated for people to understand. The enmity, Genesis 3:15. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. And it shall bruise thy head. What did I say about your wounded head but did live? You're no longer the head. You're the tail to the dragon, and you did cast them to the earth. And thou shalt bruise his heel. James 4:4. Ye adulterers and adulteress, know ye not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whoever thereover will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. 1 John 2:15-16. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. And if any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but of this world. That's why I didn't want to read the rest of that disturbing nonsense. Do as thou wilt, do as thou wilt. Ugh. Romans 8:7, because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, Yahshua HaMashiach, neither indeed can be. You're going to see the purpose of this crucifixion. There are those that have murdered him. You're going to watch this, you guys. Watch this. This is so amazing. This is going to be so amazing. Ephesians 2:16. and that he might reconcile both unto God in one body. His garment was parted, the waters are parted, but his garment, that it's without seam, it is finished. You're going to see this. Watch this. I'm so excited. Can't wait to get to the good stuff. I'm sorry for these branches, but they bear good fruit, and you're going to understand the fruit on this tree. You're going to see it. Reconcile both unto God in one body by the cross. This is amazing too. Having slain the enmity. Amen. Thereby. And that is the body, the temple, walls, the woman. Okay? Philippians 3:18. For many walk, of whom I've told you often, and now tell you even weeping. See, even Jesus reflects this woman weeping for Tammuz, because all he hears is Hosanna. They that are the enemies of the cross of Christ. You're going to see this, man. Watch this. This is amazing. John 3:39. He that had the bride. He that hath the bride is the bridegroom, but the friend of the bridegroom which standeth and heareth him rejoice greatly, because the bridegroom's voice, this my joy therefore is fulfilled. Morning stars. Okay. John 8:9. And they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. Ha! Luke 24:36. And as they thus speak, Jesus himself stood in the midst of them, and said unto them, Peace be unto you. God clothed them again. Isaiah 61:10. I will greatly rejoice in the Lord. My soul shall be full of my God, for he had clothed me with the garments of Yeshua. He had covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with jewels. Are you starting to see through the veil? Are you starting to see through the veil? Is it this good? This ain't even this presentation. This is just a branch of this tree. We're going to get back to the whole crucifixion in a minute. Just watch this. Colossians 3:12. Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, Mary David, bowels of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, and long-suffering. Here's mockery for self, Matthew 23:34, Matthew 26:2. You know, these are just some of the things that happen when you go into the daughters that are fair, casting wives, and, you know, you cause riots in Rome. These sort of things happen. So let's get back into the crucifixion of the whole importance of this cross, right? And let's get into Pilate's involvement here, because we just went over a little bit about the rib and how it's the temple walls, and the temple walls are the woman, right? We saw that. You're going to see right here how Pilate himself throws down a rib. Check this out. Watch this. John 19:6. When the chief priests, therefore, and officers saw him, they cried out, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. And Pilate said unto him, Take ye him and crucify him, for I find no fault in him. He was serving two gods, Pilate. John 19:10. Then saith Pilate unto him, Speakest thou not unto me? Knowest thou not I have the power to crucify thee, and have power to release thee? Which is only true if he would come down from the cross, right? But we're going to see why this, no. And he'd only have the power if Christ was not king. You're going to see what's going on here in a minute. But he was the Roman procurator at that time. And you're going to see why this is important in a second. John 19:15. But they cried out, Away with him, crucify him. And Pilate said unto them, Shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered, We have no king but Caesar. Okay, that's your Nimrod, the mighty provider instead of the Lord, your parents' Pytre, and we just reviewed the extension of the border of their garments, which is their jurisdiction, which encompasses the four corners of their world, done through their children of their wives, Barabasses and Tammuzes, lords of the state. Because you made a contract to the dragon, and you're no longer the head, you are the tail. Then delivered he him, therefore, unto them to be crucified. So the mockery is true for those that have murdered him in that sense. And they took Jesus and led him away. Let's get into Pilate's rib. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? In John 19:19, Matthew 27:37, Mark 15:26, Luke 23:38, and Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross. And the writing was, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. And it, in the Hebrew language, spelled out the tetragrammaton, Yahweh, the self-existing eternal name, which, acronyms associated with Baal, converted through the recently developed bastardized English language, don't count. But this one does, because of who he proclaimed to be and what was occurring, the crucifixion, because the letters that spell the Father's name, or how we know it, the self-existing eternal name, the morning star, reads this way during the crucifixion: behold the hand, behold the nail. So Pilate wrote that. That's a rib. That's a rib. Okay? And you're going to see why it's a cross and everything else. Check this out. We're going to get into it here in a second. Now, the place where he was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden, a new sepulchre, wherein was never man yet laid. Amazing. Amazing. So let's get into this crucified. You must be careful not to mock this. This is the whole importance. This is why I'm doing this video. Crucified, if you even made it this far. Crucified, Mark 15:25. And it was the third hour, and they crucified him. That was Passover. Luke 24:7, saying the Son of Man must be delivered onto the hands of sinful men and be crucified, and the third day rise again. He did say the lesser light is good. Okay, and his garment has no seam in it, although was parted. Barabbas, 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 they say. So, the crucifixion, Greek 47:17, to stake, drive down stakes, to fortify with driven stakes, to palisade, this is a wall, a rib. To crucify one metaphorically, to crucify the flesh, destroy its power utterly, the nature of the figure implying that the destruction is intended with intense pain. To impale on the cross, figuratively, to extinguish, subdue, passion or selfishness, crucify. And that is from Greeks 47:16. A cross, a well-known instrument of a most cruel and ignominious punishment borrowed by the Greeks and Romans from the Phoenicians. To it were affixed among the Romans down to the time Constantine the Great the guiltiest criminals, particularly the basest slaves, robbers, the authors and abettors of insurrections, and occasionally in the providence, at the arbitrary pleasure of the governors, upright and peaceable men also, and even Roman citizens themselves, the crucifixion with Christ underwent. Okay? We must remember he's not of this world, and we're going to get into that here in a minute. It's an upright stake, especially a pointed one, used in such in fences or palisades. Once again, the rib, the temple walls, a stake or a post set upright, namely, especially a pole or cross, as an instrument of capital punishment. Remember, not of this world. Watch my whole video and the Elements of the World video. Figuratively, exposure to death, namely self-denial by implication in the atonement of Christ. So, did he die on a stake? Did he die on a cross? These are worldly comprehensions of capital punishment and both irrelevant to the crucifixion of Christ. This is what makes it blasphemous, and you curse and profane his name. I'm going to reveal this mystery in a second. What was Christ's crucifixion? Because it was not a Judea punishment for heresy, and it was not a Roman punishment for insurrection. Because that would be a mockery to say such thing. To say he died on the cross is blasphemous. It's blasphemous. He is not of this world. So that argument is pointless and exhausting. So the cross is from Greek 2476, to cause or make to stand. This is the crucifixion right here. Pay attention. To put, to set, to bid or stand by, set up in the presence of others, in the midst, before judges, before members of the Sanhedrin, to place, to make firm, fix, establish, to cause a person or a thing to keep his or its place, to stand, be kept intact, a family, a kingdom, the patriarch, not parents patrae, to escape in safety, to establish a thing, cause it to stand, to uphold or sustain the authority or force of anything, to set or place in a balance, to weigh money to one, because in very early times, before the introduction of coinage, metals were used to be weighed. We know this because God favors fair weights and measurements, as well as jubilees and everything else. To stand by or near, to stop, to stand still, stand immovable, stand firm on the foundation of a building, to stand, continue safe and sound, stand unharmed, to stand ready or prepared, and to be steadfast of mind, of quality, one who does not hesitate and does not waver. The dayspring knows his place. John 38:12. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the dayspring to know his place? Luke 176:79, Proverbs 4:18, 2 Peter 1:19, John 1 through 20. The dayspring, Strong's Hebrew 78:37, Shahar, Psalms 22, is titled the hind of the morning dawn. Psalms 21 or 22:1, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Matthew 27:46, and Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Psalms 22 is the crucifixion, and it's not because he was murdered on a cross. It's because he was fixed, fashioned, and fortified forever in place. Do you see it now? Watch this. Psalms 112:6. Surely he shall not be moved forever. The righteous shall be in everlasting remembrance. The morning stars, the book of life, the Lamb's book of the living, the firmament. God clothed them. Psalms 93:1. And the Lord rejoiceth. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with strength. Where he had girded himself, the word also is established, that it cannot be moved. You see this? Let me grab a water. Let me get a water. Okay, rolling on. 1 Corinthians 1:17-18. For Christ sent me not to baptize, but to preach the gospel. Going to the daughters that are fair. Going to the giant. Not with wisdom of words, lest the cross of Christ should be made to none effect. Leviticus 19:12, Strong's Hebrew 2490 is Isaiah 14:12. Hebrews 19:66, Lucifer is 2 Peter 1:19. Oh yeah, that's right. Leviticus 19:12, don't profane my name. That's the exact same word as your Hallel. Check that out. That's fun right there. It's the profaner. It came in his own name. For preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved, it is the power of God. Acts 2:36. Therefore let all the house of Israel know assuredly that God had made the same Jesus, whom ye have crucified, fixed, fashioned, and fortified forever, both Lord and Christ. Crucified is fixed, fashioned, and fortified forever. 1 Corinthians 2:2. For I determined not to know anything among you, save Jesus Christ, and him crucified, fixed, fashioned, and fortified forever. Matthew 28:5. And the angel answered and said unto the woman, Fear not ye, for I know that ye seek Yeshua, which was fixed, fashioned, and fortified forever. Acts 4:10. Be it known unto all, and to all the people of Israel, that by the name, the self-existing eternal name of Yahshua HaMashiach of Nazareth, whom ye fixed, fashioned, and fortified forever, whom God raised from the tomb, even by him does the man stand here before ye whole. The woman, remember the seamless garment. Check this. 1 Corinthians 1, 2, 3. But we preach Yahshua crucified, fixed, fashioned, and fortified forever, unto the Jews a stumbling block, and unto the Greeks foolishness. Galatians 3:1 for reference, 1 Corinthians 2:8, which none of the princes of this world knew, for if they had known it, they would not have fixed, fashioned, and fortified him forever. The Lord of glory. They thought they killed him. They mock him because they call him the creator of chaos. He's always coming here to destroy their towers because they're done ungodly. The stake or the cross, not of this world. So that is a senseless argument. Colossians 2:14. The reason why they consider him this creator of chaos and a thief and all these things, because he blots out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which is contrary to us, and took it out of the way, fashioning it to the cross forever. Do you see it? The Elements of the World, my Hova video. Romans 10:10, Romans 8:4-6. Apparently I forgot those ones. Good homework for you. Revelations 11:8, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. Raphaim, watch that video. It's a good one. John 1-26. John answered them, saying, I baptize with water, but there standeth one among you, whom ye know not. It is he, whom coming after me is preferred before me, whose walk I am not worthy to live. And I knew him not, but that he should be made manifest to Israel. Oh my God, just like Jonah. Therefore am I come to baptizing with water. And John bare record, saying, I saw the Spirit descending from heaven like a dove, and it abode upon him. And I knew him not, but he that sent me to baptize with water, the same said unto me, upon whom thou shalt see the Spirit descending and remain on him, the same is he which baptized with the Holy Ghost, that fire. And I saw and bear record, just like Pilate did. I laid down a rib, fixed, fashioned, and fortified forever, my cross, my stake, my rib, that this is the Son of God. Crucify the Christ, once you understand what it means. Crucify the Christ, but do not mock him. Do you see how important this is? John 19:17, and he, bearing his cross, went forth into a place called the place of a skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha. It's important when Jacob became the rib and a wife and turned into Israel, that it occurred in Peniel, and that Christ is in the place of the skull in between the two thieves. What do you think that means? Matthew 10:38. Galatians 5:24. And they that are Christ have crucified the flesh with the affections and lusts. 2 Corinthians 13:4, weakness reference. Matthew 10:38. And he that taketh not his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. Matthew 16:24. Then said Jesus unto his disciples, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross, his rib, and follow me. Mark 8:34. And when he had called the people unto him with his disciples also, and said unto them, whoever will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Mark 10:21. Then Jesus, beholding him, loved him, and said unto him, one thing that thou lackest, go thy way, sell whatsoever thou hast, and give to the poor. That's that pure religion. And thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and take up the cross and follow me. Pure religion is James 1:27. It is undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and the widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. Go into the giants, into the daughters that were fair, taking ye wives, to the children crying Hosanna, as a candle in the darkness in his light. It's your job. Luke 9:23, and you're going to be called a thief and all kinds of things. Luke 9:23, just like the Underground Railroad. Somebody stop him. He's stealing the farm equipment. Luke 9:23, and he said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Crucify the Christ daily by fixing him and establishing him and setting him up forever. Luke 14:27, and whoever does not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. He can't walk. Also, Matthew 27:32, Mark 15:21, and Luke 23:26. Romans 13:14, but put ye on the Lord Jesus Christ, and make not provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust therefore. Galatians 3:27, for as many of you have been baptized into Christ, have put on Christ. Matthew 25:36, naked ye clothed me, I was sick, and ye visited me. That's that woman with the blood, all that. I was in prison, legion came from the tomb, and ye came unto me, and you bid me to come onto the waters. Was Christ crucified? Or was he fixed, fashioned, and established forever?